I am back on my Ford Taurus again. Actually, it belongs to my wife. And ever since we've had this car, it makes like kind of a clunking noise on both sides, more so on the driver than the passenger side. But both sides, when we're going down our driveway, we've got a rock driveway, and it just clunk, 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 clunk. And I've replaced motor mounts. All of the motor mounts have been replaced. So I think the struts had been replaced once before. Just by looking at them, the hardware just looks like it's too shiny, but I don't know. So I'm gonna lift this thing up and do a little poking around and see what I can find out and share my results. All right, so first off, I did notice that this boot on the CV joint on this axle is cracked open, and when I rotate it, makes a lot of noise. It's pretty dry. It doesn't look like a lot of grease in there. And I also noticed that if I take the rotor and I put my hands on both sides and wiggle it back and forth a lot, there's some kind of noise in the rack and pinion up there. And I had replaced all the motor mounts, but this one, I was having such a hard time trying to get that one off that I just gave up. So, I mean, it looks okay. It doesn't look like it's messed up or anything, but I have the motor mount, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace it anyway. And I'm going to order both axles, even though the axle on the other side seems okay. I've taken this pry bar and I lift it up on the control arm just to make sure that the rubber bushing up front isn't doing it. It's not. The rubber bushing on the back part right here is fine. The rubber bushings on the sway arm and these rods that go from the strut down, those have been known to have a pain and break and cause problems, especially if they're plastic. And yeah, I was right. These damn struts have been replaced because they have that stupid ass California Prop 65 warning. That wasn't out in 2001. So anyway, yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this, see if that helps. And if not, I'll replace the axle and make a follow-up video on this, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for checking this out. So you know what, I changed my mind. I am going to include on this video changing out this motor mount. So what my plan is, and I've seen other people do videos on it, and I tried to follow one of those videos and it was just terribly hard. But I think what I'm going to do is lift up this lower control arm and support it with these boards. I've got some 4x4s and some 2x4s. So what I may do is lift up and slide them underneath, not where the castle nut is for the ball joint, but somewhere along in that area. Let's see if I can get it to go there, because if I put it on the rotor, it's just going to spin. It could spin. And the reason I want to do that is because I need to get another board and put it under the pan and lift the engine up. And I think this was the problem the last time I did it. It was late at night. I was tired. I was just tired of screwing with it. And I think because I was trying to lift the engine and this strut was pushing down, I couldn't get the engine up high enough to get that motor mount to clear this part of the cradle for the transmission. So that's why I'm going to lift up this control arm, the rotor and everything, so that when I lift the engine, this isn't weighing it down and blocking it, because I think it had gotten so far that it just wouldn't go anymore. I think that's what was wrong. So I'm going to try that and replace that motor mount, and we'll see what happens. Back in a little bit. I've got everything set up, so I do have these boards underneath the control arm, and it didn't lift it up that much. It didn't make that much of a difference. And I still have my jack stand under the frame of the car, the subframe there. And I have a large 2x6 underneath the pan. And what I'll do next is get that top nut taken off, and I'll lift up and see if I can get it to clear this time, and hopefully I can get that thing out. Yeah, the top nut will come off, and then these two bolts will have to come out, and there's 2 screws, I believe, that hold it from underneath. So I'm going to try and do all this and see what happens. All right, one more thing, just so you will know. 15 millimeter, both of those. This is 18 millimeter. You can't really get a socket and a ratchet in there, so I'm going to use a box end wrench to get it loose, and then use the ratchet end of it to finish it up. And before I get started, I'm actually going to take a reciprocating saw and cut this post off. It's a guide post for making sure that this thing sits in there aligned properly. I just want it out of the way, so I'm going to cut it off. I've got a reciprocating saw with a metal blade on it, and I'm going to cut that thing out of the way first. Yeah, so with that thing out of the way, it's real easy to get it off. So now I'm going to use my breakover bar and my 15 millimeter socket. I'm going to have to use extensions and a swivel for this one here and bust those loose. Just a quick view here. Yeah, once I used my breakover bar and the extension to break it loose, then I was able to use my impact to finish pulling it out. I never put an impact on solidly installed bolts. It just wears your battery down fast. When you have a cheap ass DeWalt, that is. Well, I got it out. I ended up cutting the stud on it as well. It's right here. So I cut it off too, just to get it out of there. I couldn't get the engine to go up any higher, and I think I know why. This piece is actually hitting the sheet metal right here. That's preventing it from lifting any higher. So I may try to get my pry bar in here and pull this sheet metal and push this engine back that way a little bit, see if I can get it to lift a little more. Because I am going to have to get the new one in somehow. That's going to be the challenge. And just as I thought, like I've seen on other videos, yes, it has the 2 bolts on the bottom. So I'm going to try to get this engine a little bit higher, get a little bit more clearance, so I can get the new one in. We'll see how that works out. So yeah, I'm not going to lie, I am struggling to get that thing back in. It doesn't want to go in no matter what I do. So I'm looking at it. I know there are models that have this portion is actually removable. It comes out. So I got to looking at this whole thing and got to thinking, well, will that whole bracket come out? I'm supporting the engine with a jack. So I noticed that it's cast iron. It comes down and there's a bolt there with a nut. Let me get this in focus. So it's got a nut there and a bolt there on the very front side, and then back here towards the firewall we kind of got a similar setup, a bolt and a nut. So I'm actually going to lower it a little bit to get some of the pressure off where this is mashing up against the sheet metal. Prying on it did no good, and I'm going to see if I can get that to come out and then get everything to go back in. So we'll see how that works. So yes, those the bolt and this stud, it's actually got a 7 millimeter hex head on the stud, once I got the nut off of it, and this is the bolt that was on the top. You've got that configuration on both sides. I left the stud in there for now. So what I'm going to try to do is get this up high enough and move it around. And oh, my stud fell out. So anyway, I think I'll have enough clearance. I'll manipulate this around and try and get that damn motor mount in. You know, I didn't replace the last one because it didn't seem bad. It's not falling apart. It's still nice and solid. One thing about the new one is the bolts were too long for the new one because the threads were not deep enough. It pissed me off, so I had to put washers in there. So anyway, I'm gonna monkey with it more and we'll move forward and see what happens. All right, I don't have a stand for my camera. That's why I keep going back and forth and showing this. So yeah, with my left hand over here and my right hand over there, I lifted up on it, moved this over. I've already test fitted it once, and I put the mount in place, and I've already done it once. And then I've got to reach in there on the left side and on the right side again, lift and manipulate and kind of wiggle it around, and then it will fall on the stud here, the threaded stud, and the guide post as well. So let me do that real quick. Let me get it in place. And you can see it's in place. So what I'm gonna do next is I've already got these bolts started, and that's what I'm gonna do with the rest. I'm gonna get the stud in on both sides and the bolt in on both sides, and I'm not gonna tighten anything down completely. I'm going to go a little bit at a time on all of them so everything tightens evenly. And let me do that real quick and we'll move forward. So I'm partway through. I did start with putting the bolts on the top. There we go, there's that one. And then I'm going to do the studs, and I'm using 1/4" drive for this with a extension that has a ball on the end. Kind of a ball swivel type extension. And on the other side, it's a little harder. I did land up using one of these to get it out. Maybe I'll need it to go back in, I don't know. But like I said, I'm going back in a little bit at a time. I am gonna get the studs all the way in as far as they're supposed to go, and then put the nuts on them and then start tightening everything down. I did end up lifting the engine a little bit and switching over to another small extension that has a ball on it as well to get that stud in there. I did tighten just finger hand tight, you know, not very much, on the two top bolts on this side and the one on the left side. And then I'll get this stud in as deep as it's supposed to go. Then I'll put the nuts on, and I'll get my torque wrench, and I will torque these down to whatever the factory specification is. I'm gonna look that up real quick. So there it is, I got it in. It's a little bit of a pain, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, you'll have to remove that cast iron transmission support by taking those bolts out on each side, and the nuts and the studs. 15 millimeter, 18 millimeter, those are 13. And then the stud has a hex head on it that is 7 millimeter. So you'll need to back those out in order to get that cast iron support and manipulate it around in order to get that motor mount in, or transmission mount is what they call it. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Torque rating on these is 60 foot-pounds. The nut and the bolt, 40 foot-pounds. And I didn't care what it was on this. I can't get a torque wrench on it anyway. So I just got it super damn tight. Good luck. I hope this helps you. Have a good day.